Today I'm going to take the quiz on HTML forms. This quiz should cover most of the elements that were taught in this chapter, HTML forms and HTML form validation. Let's start the quiz. First question, what is an appropriate scenario for using an input element with the type set to radio? When you want users to type in a combination of numbers and characters, when you want to present users with multiple options and have them choose only one, when you want to present users with multiple options and have them choose any amount they want, when you want a specific frequency known to the server. So if you come here on the lesson on page 9, this is where you find the radio button input information, and here on this form they called what is the sum of 1 plus 1, and they added the radio input, and they want you to choose just one answer. In this case, sum would be 2. So this would be the answer. When you want to present users with multiple options and have them choose only one. True or false? You can assign default text to a text area element by adding text between the opening and closing text area tags. This is true. An input element with type text creates a single row input field for users to type information, and this is what it looks like. Why does the code provided not create a working data list element? I believe this is the answer. The input doesn't have a list attribute to associate itself with data list. And here is the data list chapter. And we can see that the data list here has an ID of cities. We can find the cities list in the input, but that doesn't happen in this code. We have data list with the idea of menu options, but there's no menu options up here. What is the benefit of using the label element? The label element validates the value of the input element. The label element will autofill the field of the associated input element. No, clicking on the label element will focus on the text field of the associated input element. Clicking on the label element clears the value of the input element. So the label element is created to associate a label and an input. The input needs an ID attribute. Clicking on the label element will focus on the text field of the associated input element. This would be the answer. How can we render a drop-down list in a form? So we're going to create a select element with option elements nested inside the select element. What is the benefit of implementing client-side validation? It speeds up the browser for a better user experience. It allows you to select what browsers can load your site. Client-side validation creates a fake server to check user-provided data. It saves us time from having to send information to the sender and wait for the server to respond. It saves us time from having to send information to the server and wait for the server to respond. Client-side validation takes place in the browser before it goes to any server. Based on the code provided, why will the information from the first input element not be sent to the /processing.html when the form is submitted? So here's the first input. The first input element is missing the name attribute, which omits the input's information. The first input element does not render properly. The first input element is missing a label. The form element is missing a submit button. So if we check the lesson here, the input should have a name. So the first input element is missing the name attribute, which omits the input's information. So the information will not be submitted. How are radio buttons different from checkboxes? Checkboxes can have labels, but radio buttons cannot. Radio buttons cannot be inserted into a form, but checkboxes can. You can select multiple checkboxes, but only one radio button. There's no difference between them. You can select multiple checkboxes, but only one radio button. What is rendered on the web page as a result of the code provided? Here you have form, label for mystery, what gets rendered, input, type range, ID mystery, name mystery, and here minimum 0, max 100, step 10. A text field that contains the words mystery, which can be changed to either 0 or 100. A form containing a text field which accepts any number from 0 to 10. A form containing a slider that has a maximum value of 100, a minimum of 0, and moves into steps of 10. So this would be the option. And last option, a form that is completely empty except for the submit button. Last one, what attributes should you add to an input element if you want to ensure that users provide a response? So we add required. Correct, adding required to the element will ensure that a user includes information in the field before the form can be submitted.